Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the 100 Days of Code series. Today is day 20, and if you've been following along, we're on a little mini series right now. We're day 18, day 19, and day 20. We're building one app in just 3 different features. So we're building a photo gallery app in React and Tailwind, and on day 18, I started it by building out the UI, and day 19, I added some functionality to where we can click on an image, get a bigger view of it, and as well as cycle through all the images. And today, the last day of this little mini series, we're going to add a dark mode, and it should be pretty simple. So I'm just going to share my screen and we're going to build this together. So let's get into it. So let's get our project open in VS Code. I'm going to type in code and open this up, and let's see the state of the project currently. Let's run the dev server, and we'll open this up. So here's our photo gallery, and just to get you up to speed, if you haven't watched the last couple of episodes, it's a very basic photo gallery app, and if you click on an image, it'll show a bigger preview, and we're allowed to actually cycle through all the images. So we have a pretty, basic functioning gallery, but we're gonna make this into a dark mode because not everyone wants to get flashbanged when they look at our photo gallery, right? So because we're using Tailwind, this is actually pretty simple. I already set up my Tailwind config for this, but if you're setting up a brand new Tailwind project, you're just going to want to create a dark mode property with the selector as a string for the value. And that's going to allow us to set up dark mode. Let me show you exactly what that means. So if we go into our main file here, which is our app.jsx, our very first element, our parent element, what we can do is we can give it a class of dark, and we'll hit save and nothing happens. And this is because we don't have any dark mode CSS utility classes set up. So you can see that our BG Zinc 300 is this light background color, this light gray. But if we wanted to make it dark, we could just say dark : BG Zinc 900. And if we hit save, you'll see that we now have a dark background. But we definitely don't want this to just start in the dark mode. We want our users to be able to select this, right? So let's actually make this a little bit brighter so that we can see. Okay. And what we can do is we can set this up in state. Now we're already importing useState on line 1. So inside of our app component, I'm going to create some more state. I'll say const dark mode and then set dark mode equals use state. And for now, we're just going to say true, meaning this is now true. And all we need to do is conditionally render this class based off of our state. So in order to do that, let's remove this, and we're going to actually interpolate that as a class name. So we're going to supply a set of backticks and curly braces. And in here, we're going to write a $sign and another set of curly braces. And inside of here, we're going to evaluate if our dark mode is set to true. And if so, we're going to render the dark class. If not, we're not going to render the dark class. So let's do that. We can just say dark mode, which currently is set to true. Say and then we'll supply a class of dark. Else, nothing will happen. So if we hit save, we have our dark mode. And if we turn our state to false, we'll have our light mode. And now all we need to do is just style up our UI for a dark mode. So I'm going to set this to true so that we can style this all up, and let's start working on some of this. So this is our image, and we have that white background color right here. So what we can do is we could say dark : BG Zinc maybe 900. That's pretty dark. I think that looks cool though, right? Maybe we could do something not as dark. That looks pretty good. Let's also set maybe a border on the image itself. Say class name, border 2, border white. I think that looks good. And we could do rounded of like medium to match the actual container. Let's actually set this to a little bit smaller of a border. And maybe smaller of a border radius as well. Okay, it's just something pretty basic. And maybe white's just a little too much for dark mode, right? So I'll do Zinc 900 or 500. 500 looks good. Now, you'll notice if I come up here and I set our dark mode to false, we're going to have an issue. We're still going to see this dark border right here. And that's because we're setting this border without the dark prefix. So if we only want this to show for dark mode, we're going to have to set the dark prefix. So now we don't have our border, and if we set our dark mode to true, then we'll have our border. So I think this is pretty basic. This is it. I think we'll leave these buttons right here white just for an easy contrast. But I think this is a very basic way to do it. But you know, our users are not going to have access to our code base, and we're not going to expect them to come in here and write true or false. So let's see how we can set this up to where a button will allow the user to toggle this dark mode or not. So let's take a look at our code here. I want to find where we're writing this photo gallery, maybe have a button to the right. So here we go. We see photo gallery right here. So what I think we could do is we could do an input type of checkbox, and we could say on change, and we want to call our set dark mode function. And since we want this to basically change every time, we could say set dark mode to the opposite of whatever dark mode currently is. So if we click this, it'll change to our dark mode. We don't click it, it doesn't show. So great. So let's add one more thing. Maybe we can actually add this inside of a label. So we could say label. Let's paste in our input, and we could just say, where did it go? We could just say dark mode. Cool. So I want to add a class name to the input just to give it a little bit of margin left. That way it's not so flush. Cool. And now I want this on the same line as our photo gallery. It doesn't look good right here. So that should be pretty simple. It looks like our H1 as well as our label, which holds the checkbox, is all inside of this div here. So what we can do is we can say flex, and we could say justify between, and we can say items. I think it's a line. No, I think it's just items center, and that should center it. There we go. So now we have our dark mode, and this photo gallery should probably be a little bit lighter text in dark mode, right? So we can just say text zinc 300, and that's going to keep it like this, but it's going to be completely disappeared because it's the same color as our background image when we're in light mode. So we need to make sure to add the dark prefix. So we'll say dark. And there's no prefix for light mode. It's just your standard mode. So we can say text zinc 900. And it'll be this dark by default, and dark mode will allow us to do that. And one small final tip is maybe we could add some sort of animation. So if we add the class of duration, maybe 500 to our background color, now we have kind of a smoother transition. And we can do this for all the elements in here, but I'll leave that up to you. That's going to be it for this little mini series, as well as day 20 of the 100 Days of Code video series. I'm going to leave the repo for this project down below if you want to pull it down, add some of your own cool code. Until then, have fun and happy coding.